This is SHRM Radio in partnership with Timber Media, Podcasters for India Inc.
Hello and welcome to Unabashed, a podcast on candid conversations on all things talent. Well, in this podcast, we have open, honest and unapologetic conversations about the emergent realities of work, worker and the workplace. I'm Neha Pant, part of the Knowledge and Advisory team at SHRM India, and I have with me Abhijit Bhaduri. Welcome Abhijit, how are you doing today?
Very good. When you were saying we are going to talk about all things talent, my first reaction was, I'm going to talk about all things and you are the talented person, so you will talk about talent, and that's how the distribution is going to be. All right. Okay. So Neha, that's something that, so it is your responsibility.
You don't consider yourself talent, is it?
No, I'm not in that zone.
Why not?
Nothing. So the responsibility is on you to make sure that we are talking about all things talent. I will talk about all things. For example, I'll talk to you about the movies that
I have to ensure you don't digress. That's what you're telling me.
Yes. And I have to ensure that you are not too focused on, have you talked about talent? Because, there are like so many conferences where you get this whole bunch of pieces of information. And, I always think that it's very intimidating at some level when somebody says, you have to make sure you do these three things. And I'm thinking that, oh gosh, I've never ever done any of these things. So I think I would really like to talk about many of those things we don't get a chance to talk about, and including some of the things which are vulnerable. And so Neha, you should be feeling comfortable talking about your boss.
My God, is that what we're talking about today?
Yeah, we should talk about your boss.
My boss? Oh my God, I just hope he's not listening. But really, what are we talking about today?
Okay, good. So that's one clue. Okay, so that's what we are talking about. Okay, so he is not listening. So that's a clue. So
oh gosh, you're going to get me into trouble for sure, right? You are self-employed, but
you were going to say unemployed. Okay, see.
No, I meant to say self-employed. You are your own boss, right? So you can say anything about your boss and get away with it, right? And you'll put me on a spot. And you already have.
I can also talk about all my bosses, in the past. And, they're like such amazing stories. There are, of course, a few good ones. And there are like a whole lot of really horrible ones. Some people would, I would really... gosh, I'm so glad I'm not working with them anymore.
So are you serious? We are talking about bosses?
Yes, we can talk about that, because I think it's one of the most important things that, at least in my case, when I started working, I was very lucky to get amazing bosses in the first couple of years. So I think they really shaped my professional DNA. That's what I think a boss does. And then I think, life said, you've had a very, very good time. You had people who've sort of mentored you, coached you, done all that. Now it is time to put you in with real nasty people, see the other side of the bosses. And I, next couple of years, I got some really, really, really terrible ones. And then, of course, things again improved. And so it's been a bit of one of those wave-shaped recoveries.
Sure.
So, what about you? You've had terrific bosses always.
All right. Before I actually get started on that conversation, let me put a disclaimer out, okay? So whatever I'm going to say in this conversation does not apply to my current boss.
Right? Gosh, that's such a cheap cop-out, Neha. How terrible. This is not in keeping with the unabashed conversation.
No, I am going to be unabashed, but let me tell you this, that none of this applies to my current boss.
You can't do that. Because this is, beginning to sound like those disclaimers we have in the movie. Anything that we say has no resemblance with it. Of course, the moment they say it, it is about somebody specific.
Why are you wanting to get me into trouble, Abhijit? I mean, we called it unabashed. We said we'll have open, honest conversations. But I didn't know you want to talk about bosses in just the first episode.
No. So that's one of the biggest things that I think we should talk about, what is the role of the boss? I mean, and I have very, very strong views based on my experience of all the bosses that I've had, good and bad. I mean, and I think that, you're looking at, especially in today's remote working setting, Neha, I think the role of the boss has become even more critical, because the boss is not able to watch you in person. So, they cannot step out and build a bond with you, or they do not know how to sort of evaluate your work. You're pretty much on your own. So you have to be driven on by your own energy. So how does the role of the boss change? In my opinion, it changes drastically. And I would just say that the role of, the way the person builds trust, the empathy that the person does, has a far bigger impact than, just somebody who obsesses about productivity. You were supposed to work for 8 hours and then you didn't work for 8 hours. So somebody who does that.
No, absolutely. I think I have personally always believed that your work culture is only as good as your manager. And your manager plays a very important role in shaping your career. So I think it's a big responsibility. And somewhere I wonder whether managers also feel equipped, to be leading teams. And more often than not, in our client conversations as well, we hear that, the managers have not undergone any sort of, skilling, so to say, in terms of how to really lead teams. Some people may be management graduates and they may have, learned some skills around people management while they were, studying, and pursuing their MBA. But apart from that, a lot of managers who grow organically in the system, right, and technically really sound, and they get promoted and then suddenly are given a team to lead. Of course, it's a step ahead in their career. They're excited about the new role, but then more often than not, they find themselves.
That, I think, is the problem area. That, Neha, I think what happens is, in a very, very, power distant society like ours, where, there's a massive difference between the boss and the subordinate mentally in our head. And I'm not talking about organizational levels. So, what happens is people want to become a people manager for two reasons. One is that it gives them a, monetary raise, which is important to everyone. Especially at the early stages of your career, it gives you a significant bump. The second thing is that it's a power trip. That, now you have these people in your, and that's what happened with me. That, when I became a manager for the first time, for me, it was a power trip that, oh my God, I can write their appraisal and do what I want. I mean, it's just like somebody handing over a blank check. And I just look back and I feel embarrassed about how horribly unprepared I was. And because the org had there were some org changes and I sort of landed up leading a small team. But I just think I did such a horrible job of it because I just wasn't sure and nobody put me through a structured training program. So I would think that going back, if I had a, like a program that I could attend, so like, I don't know, if there is a course that I could do, either by myself or in the organization, being coached by somebody.
No, absolutely. I also think somewhere, managing people is seen as something that we all should know, and this should come to us intuitively, right? And I recall, one of the head of the organizations in my previous organization, one of my previous organizations, ended up saying one time that, why should I teach my managers how to manage people? Shouldn't they know this already? We all deal with people right from the time we are born. So I don't think this is something that we really need to teach separately. People
My
should
God,
be
I hope this person was not responsible for hiring more people managers. So, horrible mindset.
I know, and that's when I sort of wondered that, I mean, it's a difficult thing to do. It's not easy to lead people. And if we assume that, this should come to us naturally, that is such a fallacy because that just doesn't happen. So, I think it's very important that we are equipping our managers with the right skills. And yes, it's a lot of managers who've not had that, either by education, they've never learned people management, or their organizations haven't done enough. They find themselves, in this predicament. They don't understand, what's going wrong. They're doing everything right.
Pause. Look at where do people get their managers tested? Where is that manager skill tested? Not when you're conveying good news. Anyone can come up and tell you that, oh, you've done a great job, you're getting promoted, I'm giving you an increment. Anyone can do that. But I think the place where really the acid test of a manager, people manager is, are you able to convey, are you able to convey bad news that, you worked hard, but, there is going to be no increment for anyone in this team, or having to make choices. that we can promote only one person while all 10 of you have worked really hard, only one of them is going to do that. How well do you manage that? Those are the kind of scenarios that really get you tested as a people manager, not when you're doing your day-to-day work. Or in my view, the third area where you get tested as a people manager is when you're really, coaching people, and which I think is another thing we assume. I don't know why we assume that everybody can coach. So organizations roll out this, anybody who's X level and above will now have the responsibility to mentor and coach people. I think it's just such a bad idea.
And without equipping them.
Everyone doesn't know how to sing.
Yeah,
just because you get promoted from, assistant manager to manager, suddenly you don't learn how to sing.
Absolutely.
That's the best example I could think of. But you think so? Most people don't know how to sing. And even the best of guys, actually the best of singers actually to get coached in how to become better.
Absolutely. But then this coaching bit also is really misunderstood. Okay, we may be doing a lot of programs on managers as coaches, but when you look at the implementation of it, ask their team members, are they really feeling like they're being coached? Or they are being interrogated with questions, because this is what people understand now, that coaching is about asking
all the questions.
So don't give answers, just ask questions to, till the time that person gets frustrated and is like, I don't know what to do next, right?
But this is
one of the guys
told me
conversations.
So first time when we introduced coaching in the organization, this guy comes up to me and says that I haven't quite understood what this guy who I'm working with gave me his name and said, what am I supposed to be doing with him? Because, he comes and says, what is the problem you want to work on? So I tell him the problem. Then he says, how do you think it might be addressed? So I say that, okay, I can do this or I can do this. Which of these two ways would you want to try out? And then I say, I'll choose option A. He says, okay, when will you tell me that you've implemented it? Then I tell him, okay, next week. So what is this guy's role? Because problem bhi main bata raha hu, solution bhi main bata raha hu. So I'm telling him the problem and the solution. What is this guy's role for? Yeah. I think in India, the way that it works well is not just a person. And I think this model of asking questions is not something that really gels well in the organizational cultures that we have, or the societal cultures we've grown up in. You tell people you have to manage your own career. The first thing he asks you, please tell me what to do. What do you think I should do? Because we are brought up in that environment. So it's going to take time for us to have a completely independent response. And I think it's a bad idea because even when you tell people, I would always say that I'm going to be a mentor and I'm happy to share a point of view and you can take what you want out of that. I'll share options. I'll work with you to identify options.
No, absolutely. To my mind, coaching requires conversational intelligence. Not everybody has that, right? Not everyone can be a coach.
What was that term? I like that.
That's
conversational intelligence.
Absolutely. I mean, you need to ask questions. Yes, questions are powerful. They make people think. They actually lead to solutions. But there is a way of asking questions, right? And just because you went into a program called Manager as a Coach, you don't come out becoming a coach, from that program, and then you suddenly start engaging in asking questions, to people. It does not solve anything for them. You are not actually being a coach. For all you know, the team member is frustrated because he's now feeling directionless. He does not know what to do and how to go about it. So sometimes showing the direction also sort of works, like you said, tell them that this is how I did it, or this is how, someone else did it, and give them some options, some solutions. Sometimes that works too. But yeah, that's perhaps a conversation for another time. I think, organizations really have to equip their managers with the right skills, especially when they are becoming managers for the first time, when they've never led teams before. It's a big, big, big responsibility. And I believe managers, like I said in the beginning as well, they shape or break careers. And when you entrust someone with that kind of a responsibility, you really have to train them well too. So I think that's what is most important to my mind.
But I also think that sometime I just want to sort of share that when I started to become a people manager, one of the questions that the person who was, I was reporting to, asked me which was such a game changer. And I'm going to ask you to guess what that question could be. I'm going to ask all the listeners to also guess. What do you think the people, should be asked before they become people managers? What is that one question you would ask if you had that challenge? So, the best response, I think, should get a prize. So, Neha, can we announce that? Unabashed. So we should do that.
Absolutely.
But,
the answers have to be unabashed too, right?
And I think what you should be doing is you can give your responses. If you want to share it on social media, you can do it. You can follow me at Abhijit Bhaduri. That's my first name, last name together, Abhijit Bhaduri, on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram. You can follow me, and I'll look forward to your responses. Neha, how can they reach you?
Absolutely. So you can reach us on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. SHRM pages are available everywhere. So do follow us on social media. If you'd like to drop in a query, you can do that on SHRM India, which is SHRM India at shrm.org. That's the email address that you could send your queries to. Use unabashed term in the subject line so we know where this query is coming from. Also, we've recently launched People Manager Qualification. If you'd like to learn more about it, do check that out. It is on-demand, self-paced e-learning that's available to equip your managers, especially the ones who are stepping into that role for the first time with the requisite skills of leading teams. And if you'd like customized learning journeys for your managers, feel free to give us a shout out. Reach out to the advisory team at SHRM India. And we'll see you soon for another unabashed conversation.
And until the next time, goodbye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
This is SHRM Radio in partnership with Timber Media, podcasters for India Inc.